Endless hot water. It's the ultimate RVer's dream, right? But is installing a tankless hot water heater worth it? We're going to go through a step-by-step DIY install of our tankless hot water heater and answer the question, is it worth it? We want to thank eTrailer for sponsoring this video. We've been without hot water for over 7 weeks due to burnt wires on our Dometic water heater. Now, we've had problems with this water heater from the very start. Just 3 days after purchasing this unit, the thermal cutoff blew, and we've also had to replace the board 2 different times.
Now let's talk about why we wanted to switch over to a tankless. This is something that I've been dreaming about for 4 years, but I was getting really tired of short showers and lukewarm showers.
Let's just talk quickly about the pros and cons of each.
So for the tank water heater, I can't think of a lot of pros. The one pro I can think of is that you have a electric and propane option. And then the only other thing I can think of is that you're using less water if you are out boondocking.
So the cons are pretty easy. There's not enough hot water for showers, at least for you.
For me, or think about if you have a family who's needing to shower. That would
true.
Be a nightmare.
Yeah, you'd have to wait.
Yeah, you have to wait for the water to heat back up in the tank. And then again, I just don't think there's enough hot water in those tanks. I just don't.
Now let's talk about cons to the tankless hot water heater. Now the list is much longer, and with that being the case, why would anyone want to go with a tankless hot water heater? Well, the biggest one is when you're boondocking, and there are 2 parts to this.
Yeah, so the first one is when you have a tankless, you turn the water on, the water is not coming on hot right out of the faucet. So you have a lot of extra water that would be considered being wasted. But when you're boondocking, there's a solution to this. You can just have a container there with you and collect that water. That can be used to either put in your toilet to add water back to your toilet after you flush, or you can use it for dishes. The second one is if you are wanting to conserve water during your shower, this is not a friendly option because turning the water off starts the cycle all over again. So if you're trying to do a military shower, save water, turn it off. When you turn it back on, you have to wait for that cold water to get warm again. So you've got that extra collection of water.
The other thing is when you are boondocking or at a water electric only site, the tankless water heaters have a flow rate so that you cannot turn your water flow down. So you use more water and you also fill your tanks quicker.
Yeah, we've definitely seen that to be true. And the next thing is tankless water heaters are more vulnerable to hard water buildup. So they need to be descaled more often. Now, this is not really a big deal to us because you've really kept up on this with our tank water heater. You did that, a few times a year anyway.
Yep.
So that's not something that's going to add to our workload. And we are in areas a lot that have hard water. So we will need to make sure that we stay up on that. But that's definitely a con for some people, just knowing that you have to do that more often. Some people say that not having an electric option on a tankless is a con. I would argue that and say that I think it's more efficient to use a tankless with the propane. You're only heating the water when you need it, not trying to keep the water heating all day long. Now, the only pro that matters to me and the ultimate pro of a tankless is endless hot water.
So the first thing I needed to do was turn the water off to the hot water tank on the inside of the RV. Next thing I'm going to do is drop this door and drain all the water from the water tank. Got my pressure relief valve here, and then I have the drain valve down here. So if you take the cap off of the drain valve first, it won't shoot out as far until you open the relief valve. So right now I just took the cap off. Now it's barely coming out. Once I open this relief valve, now it comes out a lot quicker. I could save you from getting all wet. Now I still need to go inside and disconnect the water lines, and I'll have to disconnect the power as well as the propane. But I'm going to at least get started taking out these screws. So at this point, I've got everything loosened up. I need to turn off the propane. I'm gonna turn on the range just for a minute, just to drain out all the propane out of the lines. Then I'll disconnect this propane line here, and then I'll shut the power off to the RV and disconnect all these power lines. Just taking off the propane line here. So that's loose. So one thing you're going to need is a multimeter. Now I have a couple of very inexpensive, cheap multimeters. We decided, you know what, if we're going to be testing wiring, it's better to just be sure that they're actually decent multimeters and that they're working correctly. So we went to Lowe's and I picked up this Klein Tools, and it's fairly inexpensive as well, but it's much nicer than the one that I have. So you will have to pull out the old water heater and then test those wires and find your 12 volt DC power. So that's what we had to do with this. I have to cut these lines and then put those other fittings on these lines. Now, I did run into a couple of issues. I had to run back to the hardware store a couple different times. Had to go to Lowe's initially, then I went to our local hardware. What I picked up there did not work, so I ended up having to go back to Lowe's again. One thing I wanted to point out was when they manufactured our RV at Grand Design, they use a combination of flex hose as well as PEX. You can get these PEX fittings on flex hose, but it's really tight. Flex hose diameter is bigger, and you really have to work hard at getting these over the flex hose. So I ended up deciding to run to the hardware and just buying some hose clamps, and that was so much easier. I was able to use my cordless drill, and you just tighten down the hose clamps on the flex hose. Now, the other thing that I ran into was the other problem. We bought fittings that fit in PEX hose, but it would not fit in the flex hose. Sorry if that's all confusing, but the PEX is a little bit smaller in diameter. I initially put the brass fittings on the back of the Fagatti tankless hot water heater, and when I went to install it, the PEX hose was too small, and I ended up having to go back to Lowe's. The barb side of that brass fitting did not fit in this flex hose, so I had to go back to the hardware and find a special fitting that fits the water heater and has a larger diameter barbed fitting that will fit this flex line. Okay, now I'm going to turn on the propane, and then I will hit it with my soapy water on the inside and make sure we don't have any leaks. Sure there's no leaks. So as far as the wall controller, we decided to put it right here under the desk. The tankless hot water heater is actually right back here. So we prefer convenience over location. And yes, I could have ran wiring all the way to the bathroom. But basically, once you have your temperature set that you like, you're not changing it a lot anyway. So eTrailer's customer service is open 7 days a week, and they test and review every one of their products. Now, the really cool thing is they are there to help you find the solution to every one of your situations. We have been super impressed with eTrailer. Well, it's been 2 weeks since we installed the Fagatti tankless hot water heater, and we are really happy with it.
Yeah, I think the install went really well. I didn't do anything, I just watched, but other than running around for different parts that we weren't prepared for, it was a very easy install.
Yeah, it's super easy. If you are a DIY type person, it's something you could easily do. The hardest part is just knowing which electrical wires to hook up to. Other than that, very easy process.
It's been amazing having endless hot water, and the biggest adjustment for me has just been finding the temperature that works for me. We had a tankless on our first RV, and I forgot that I can't turn up the cold to make adjustments, that I have to pick the temperature that I want. So I found it, and I'm all good, and I am loving it.
Yeah, and we're really happy with the placement of the wall controller. It works really well there. We have a link below for the Fagatti that we have, and again, we want to thank eTrailer for sponsoring this video.
Now, get out there and wonder.